yeah, as a reliever, you got to kind of be on every day just in case. But I think the biggest thing is two things. One, you get so amped up for these games, the adrenaline, like especially if you play or you pitch or you're a position player every day, and you're just up, and then here you are at midnight staring at your ceiling after a game, going, how do I come down from this? Couple that with when you're in between the lines, your mentality literally has to be, nobody can beat me, nobody can stop me, almost like I'm invincible. You just have to think that way. And then you step off the lines, and the guys who don't do a good job of shutting that switch off, going, hey, that doesn't play in the real world. That's not how the real world works. And so now you've got to come down off games. You've got this mentality or attitude like you're bulletproof until you're not.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Willpower Podcast. Today I'm thrilled to announce that I have a very special guest, former MLB pitcher, Brandon Puffer. Everybody, how you doing today, Brandon?
Hey, Will, I'm doing great, man. Excited to be on here with you.
Yeah, man. Thank you very much for coming on. I know we were talking off air a little bit about the connection of Sean, and Sean was just on the podcast. I hope everyone went to go check that one out because that was a terrific episode that I don't think is getting enough love out there. So everyone go check that one out. But Brandon, so your story is fascinating, man. Like when I was going through just before prepping for this talk that we were going to have, man, like the ups, the downs, the lefts, the rights, man, like it was overwhelming, but also the journey that you've been on and to where you were to where you are now, man, is just fascinating. So if you can you just give us a little backstory of who you are?
Yeah, no, absolutely will. Yeah, sometimes my wife and I talk about that. She's like, man, you've lived a lot of life.
Yeah.
But to your point, a lot of ups, a lot of downs. Yeah, just to kind of like just start off and just paint a picture of it. Grew up in Southern California, just a young boy like everyone else. Not everyone, but a lot of people. I had a dream to be a Major League Baseball player one day, or at least a professional athlete. And then, I started getting involved in baseball when I was young, and my dad was around coaching, and that became a real love for our family. We played a little bit of everything. I have a little brother, mom and dad together. Mom, just like a straight angel to this day. She's a pastor. She's the rock of our family. Dad had his struggles. He fought his demons that I would eventually follow in his footsteps with. And so that was kind of off the field, some rocky stuff, some traumas here and there. But, I had a great set of parents, great brother, grew up in a great area. And just kind of fast forwarding, through like high school is when that dream kind of looked like a potential reality for me, and scouts started coming around a little bit, and had growing, and just looked like maybe that was a possibility for me. So I got drafted out of high school, 1994 by the Minnesota Twins, and kind of went on that journey of, the minor leagues and the bus rides and the cities and the towns and the PB&J sandwiches and the pizza and the bus, and that along that whole trek though was just that silver line, that parallel line of all those addictions and demons and traumas and stuff I took with me. So when I left California to Florida for my first rookie ball season at 18, looking back on it, I was excited. And now I'm like, what a setup that was, man. I wasn't ready or mature enough for any of that. So as I'm sure we'll get into, there were a lot of twists and turns, some great highs in the game, and then lows off the field as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that intro there, man. So in your playing ball day, when was there issues then, or did that come much later?
Oh, no, it was then, and it was actually much sooner. So, like I said, my dad, things like, alcoholic, anger, substance abuse, and that kind of stuff I kind of watched. And then he got sober when I was in high school, which was such a cool blessing to watch. And I'll be honest, my mom was always telling us what was right and strong in her faith and making good choices and all those things. I don't know if I've ever left the door to this day at 50 where she didn't say make good choices or be safe. But it was just like, I looked at my dad as just a big, strong, he was a former athlete. He was just like, man, that's a man. That's who I want to be. And so when I watched him change his life in high school, I was already really deep into just drinking and trying to, as I always say it when I'm on these type of shows, I had like a God-shaped hole inside of me. I was trying to fill it with everything, man, like girls, alcohol, drugs, being a tough guy, fight, whatever. And none of that stuff obviously, sustains anybody. And he was trying to tell me that. But so to answer your question, when I got drafted out of high school, I was already pretty deep into all those addictions. So now I just had freedom, and I had time, and I had no accountability, and had other buddies that were more than willing to go hang out after a game. And so, yeah, for the first I want to say from 1994 to 1998, I was just out there just making a mockery of myself in terms of how I look at it now, because I had a gift and I was chasing a dream. My actions off the field weren't lining up with what I was trying to accomplish. And so I did have a life change in 1998. But yeah, when I and then eventually fell back off the wagon. But yeah, from 94 to 98, it was just the world's my playground. I'm a pro athlete. Let's go have fun. And so I wasted and squandered a lot of kind of the gift I'd been given to be a part of these organizations, and just kind of disrespecting their opportunity they gave me.
Yeah. So from 94 to 98, that was, you're saying that during that time period, it was, you were playing ball, you were doing everything that you wanted to do, and you were having fun on the side, and it was innocent at that time? Or would you say there was like a lot of boiling up tension?
Yeah, that's a great question, Will, because at the time it kind of felt innocent, like maybe I'm just the fun guy, I go a little harder than the other guys type thing. But looking back on it, and what would eventually be a big demise for me, was I just didn't have an off switch. You know, a lot of guys, I'm one of those guys who's like, no one should drink and no one should do that. I have a brother that grew up in the same home I grew up in, and he has liquor in his house, and he can drink socially, and he knows when to be responsible and when not to. I just didn't have that. It was just no compass there once I started. And so looking back, it was more than just like, hey, we're playing ball, we're having fun. But at the time, it just felt like, yeah, I'm the one who wants to go all the time, and I'm always down for a good time. And so it was, you know, we're young, we think we're something special because we're playing baseball or whatever. And it's just, yeah, looking back, it kind of like makes me have more perspective of like, what an idiot that kid was. But at the time, it was like, oh, this kid's pretty cool and fun, right? So until later, when I didn't get the cues to stop, when the consequences and the pain had to be more for me to actually get those cues.
Yeah, well, you don't know what you don't know yet, right?
True. Yeah.
I wonder, like in Major League Ball, I mean, the schedule is just crazy. It's so many games, you know. And as a pitcher, I'm sure for your schedule, it's like you're pitching, you know, as a relief pitcher, especially, you're pitching, you know, when they need you, kind of thing, right?
Absolutely.
So you always have to be on your game. I wonder how many people like in your inner circle, even broader spectrum speaking, have like some kind of substance abuse issue with that lifestyle. You know, I can only imagine that it must be pretty.
Yeah, it certainly is. And I think it's twofold. I think it's what you just mentioned, Will. Yeah, as a reliever, you got to kind of be on every day just in case. But I think the biggest thing is two things. One, you get so amped up for these games, the adrenaline, like especially if you play or you pitch or you're a position player every day, and you know, you're just up, and then here you are at midnight staring at your ceiling after a game going, how do I come down from this? And unfortunately, most guys chose nightlife and some drinks and some, you know, whatever the case may be. And then couple that with when you're in between the lines, your mentality literally has to be, I'm better than you. Nobody can beat me. Nobody can stop me. Almost like I'm invincible. You know, you just have to think that way. And then you step off the lines, and the guys who don't do a good job of shutting that switch off, going, hey, that doesn't play in the real world. That's not how the real world works. And so now you've got to come down off games. You've got this mentality or attitude like you're bulletproof until you're not. And so I just think, yeah, it's a big set. Now, don't get me wrong. There were several guys that handled it well and had more healthy ways of coping with all that. But yeah, it's pretty rampant, I think, with guys who don't. And you see that a lot. It pops up in the news a lot. And I'm like, crap. Yeah, I can, you know?
Yeah. Well, I'll be doing a disservice to my listeners out there from Boston who might not know your story. But can you tell us a little bit about that little time that you came to Fenway?
Oh, heck yeah, brother. That is, I'll tell you every detail about it. It's awesome.
All right.
2004, I was playing for the San Diego Padres, and I was up in the big leagues with the Padres. I was living pretty close to my house where I grew up. Family was around. They had a brand new stadium in Petco Park. Man, I was a little condo by the beach. I was feeling it. I was loving it. And we were on a flight back from Arizona, and one of the front office, or maybe it was the manager, came back and said, hey, so you know you got traded to the Red Sox. I'm like, oh man, wow. And he's like, well, they're in playoff contention. You're going straight to the Boston. I was like, holy crap, what a storied franchise. What a Fenway Park. So I'm thrilled, man. I'm like, okay, this is a big change, but wow, this is going to be awesome. Well, we land and they call me in and they go, hey, you're still going. The trade's on. But you're going to go to Pawtucket, AAA for a little bit, because during that flight, they signed another lefty named Jimmy Anderson. So he went to Boston. I went to Pawtucket. I toiled around there for about a month. And then right at the end of the season, and for those that don't know, in September, they expand the rosters and call some guys up, and they no longer have to make so many roster moves. So typically, if you go in September, you're there for the duration of the deal. So here I am, get called up in September. I'm thinking, man, Red Sox are in the playoffs. I'm going to ride this thing out. It's going to be amazing. So I get in town, I get my uniform, I play catch, do batting practice. Finally sit down in the bullpen at Fenway Park, and I'm like just soaking it in, man. I remember the reason I got called up is because Johnny Damon, no, take that back. That's about to happen. Their bullpen was depleted. They needed an extra arm for the playoff run, and I was that guy. And I was like, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah, I remember. I mean, I was 18, so I definitely remembered 04. I mean, 04 or 05 was when we won the World Series. So I remember, but that must have been a crazy experience. So once you were there, and it was just for that brief moment, but that brief moment did in the long run eventually lead you to a ring, right?
It did, brother. Yeah. So real quick, I got there that day, sat in the bullpen. Derek Lowe threw a complete game, so the bullpen got a little bit of rest. Johnny Damon dove for a ball. They thought he broke his finger. Mm-hmm. So they called up an outfielder for AAA. Remember his name, Adam Heisdu, awesome guy. And they needed a roster spot on the 40-man roster, so they sent me out. So I was there literally a day and a half. Theo Epstein called me in with Terry Francona, and Tito was like, man, we don't ever do this. This is BS. Whatever, the whole deal. I'm like, it's happening. So I left. And then, yeah, to your point, I sit like everybody else. I watched TV and watched that awesome run, the historic comeback. Yeah. So fired up. I wasn't thinking about anything. I didn't pitch for it, nothing. And the next spring training, I was with the Giants in Scottsdale, and they called and asked for my ring size and said, I'm like, what is this about? I remember I was walking with my dad, and I got phone. I'm like, the Red Sox are giving me a World Series ring. And so they did. And what an incredible honor, even though I didn't feel I earned it, right? And then, as you know the story, man, when my life hit a skid and got really hard, I ended up being one of those athletes, unfortunately, that sold his Red Sox ring, man. And so, guys respect so much to my life. And I really, truly believe, I always say it on the podcast, I'm like, one day I'm going to get it back. I don't know who has it.
You'll get it back.
It was on Pawn Stars, and they didn't want it because it was my name and not Big Papi. But yeah, man, it's out there somewhere. But it was just such a cool honor to put on the Red.
I mean, just an honor. I mean, you're a professional ball player, man. Like, there's no one can take that away from you. So don't ever think that of your accomplishment is less than others, because it's not. So can we get into kind of the personal stuff now? So when did you start realizing that you were having maybe some kind of issues when it came to like your substance abuse?
Absolutely. So as I mentioned before, 1998. One thing about my mom is when I was back home, and my leisure not making any money, so I typically stayed at home. She would make sure we went to church. Like, hey, just go to a group, go Thursday night, go to something, this college group, young adults, whatever. So I went, and I usually didn't just do anything for me. I wasn't into it. And then one night I did make a life change in 1998. And, my faith became very important to me. I got sober. I went through Celebrate Recovery. At that point, I knew this is a big issue. I watched my dad go through it, and I finally said, you're right. This is me. And so I got sober. I was sober for 5 years. That was in, like I said, 98. The trajectory of my career just really started taking off, mostly because I was getting rest. I was working hard. I was prepared. I wasn't, hungover during, like you can fool everyone around you that you're working and you're doing all the things you're supposed to do. But when you get on that mound and there's a one-on-one confrontation, in your mind, if you prepared. And most of the time I wasn't. But now I was. And my a company with a new arm angle, I ended up really rising up pretty fast and going from 5 years in A-ball, being released by 3 teams, to AA, AAA, and then eventually the big leagues in 2002 with the Houston Astros. Still sober, still living my life of faith, still, family guy, all that stuff. Going well, going great. And then in 2004, that same year we just spoke about in spring training, I separated from my first wife. I was away from my daughters for the first time. No accountability, and I just kind of, I call it that enemy or that voice going, hey man, that was 5 years ago. You're more mature now. Go have a drink with your boys, and I went and compromised one night. And from that point on, I hit that slippery slope again. So from 04 to the end of my career, 08 was that tug of war of like, I know what's right. I shouldn't be doing this, but I'm doing it anyway. And which would eventually end in a pretty huge crash, as I'm sure you know.
Yeah. So let's get into that crash. So lead me up to that point. I mean, you just did, but let's.
No, for sure. So a couple years after, up and down the big leagues, I told you about that fast track to the big leagues when I was sober. Well, if you hit a graph, man, as soon as I started getting back out there and making poor choices, it just kind of like, the time became less and less. Big league teams would give me a chance, and then it'd be kind of up and down, and just all that stuff. So that ended up happening. Well, in 2007, the Texas Rangers called me and asked if I wanted to take on like a player coach role, kind of like the Bull Durham, the old guy that had made it and go back to Double-A and help these prospects. And so I did, and I loved it. I relished it. They were kind of grooming me to be like a pitching coach, a bullpen coach in their organization. And I did that in 07, had a blast, did it again in 08. And all through those times, I'm kind of putting up a front, like I'm the chapel leader of the team, acting like I have it together, but I'm really struggling with my addictions and my thoughts and all the things I'm doing off the field. And so while these young guys are looking up to me and I'm supposed to be mentoring them, I just feel like such a double standard because I'm not taking care of my own life, my own business. And that would ultimately be part of my demise. I didn't want to admit to anybody that I was struggling. I was kind of put up as like the veteran guy on the team, and everyone kind of comes to me with their problems. The last thing I want to do is dump on them and go, look, I'm struggling. Like I don't have it figured out. And so, 2008, I get through the whole season without really any incident. Guys are going out. I'm telling them, no, I can't go with you. But I go do my own thing on my own, kind of secret double life type stuff. Towards the end of the year, man, I'm driving to the ballpark on a Friday. It's September 13th, 2008, about a week away from going home. We're in the championship series. We're doing great. The young guys have just been a blast all year. It's like names that a lot of guys know, like Derek Holland, Elvis Andrews, Chris Davis, like just all these studs end up being good big leaguers. And I'm like, you know what, man? It's one night. Driving in, what's one night? I'm just going to have fun with these guys for one night. They've been great all year. Just kind of, because they would say stuff like, we heard you used to be kind of wild and used to, and I'm like, that guy's dead. Frank the Tank's done, And, so I made that compromise, man. I'll tell you, Will, I don't know if people believe in this or not, but I heard a voice pretty immediately going, that's a bad idea. I wouldn't do it. I'm, no, you don't listen to that. You're like, I got this. I'm good. So I went in this day. This is my 15th year of pro ball at this point, and I'm a routine guy, man. This was like every other day. It really was, man. I'm like, okay, we're going to go have a game. I'm going to go have a couple drinks with the guys. We're going to go out. And this particular day, it couldn't turn that switch off again. And it's like 2, 3 in the morning. And by this time, some of the older guys, the pitching coach and the clubhouse manager had seen me out. They were kind of like, the young guys thought it was fun. They didn't get it. They're like, oh, it's fun. And they saw the sadness of it. Like, Puff, this isn't you, man. Let's come to our apartment. We'll take care of you, which I'm grateful for. Unfortunately, I just kept going, no, I'm gonna still go. I'm gonna go find a party in the complex. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. And September 14th, and we can go in whatever detail you want to. I woke up and I heard my name over at intercom. Had an orange jumpsuit on. I had woken up that everyone's nightmare. You wake up in jail, stuff you see on movies, not going to happen to you. Looked around. I'm in a cell with a bunch of other people, and the clubhouse manager had come to bail me out. I'm still thinking, what happened, man? Like, what? Show me the paper. Like, what? Because you called me last night, and I was hoping you were kidding, but I came just in case. And sure enough, here you were. And so kind of had to try to digest that, thinking, okay, well, we'll figure this out. I didn't mean any harm type deal. And it ended up being a very serious charge. I got burglary of a habitation. What happened was I walked into a young lady's apartment. I'd only met one time. I was not invited. There was no reason for me to be there. It happened to be unlocked. I knocked. They didn't answer. I was telling my buddies, they told me this later, like, I think my friend's having a party, blah, blah, blah. Something was triggered me to go, yeah, she's probably having people over. And I went in and I tried to get in bed with her, man. And that's so embarrassing to say, but I've always believed if you're transparent, you can maybe help someone who's having these weird thoughts of like, oh yeah, that's okay. That's going to be fine. Well, obviously it wasn't. I scared her to death. Fortunately, nothing happened, nothing happened physically, but I scared her. I picked up my stuff. I ran. I jumped down a bunch of stairs, and I got arrested in the parking lot. And I was still going like, man, I didn't mean any harm. Can I talk? I know her. Like, I know I wasn't invited, but I didn't, you know what I mean? And it was, no, that's not, and then eventually I would realize how serious it was. Yeah. So fast forwarding, man, I was 9 months out on bond. Baseball teams were calling. I'm like, guys, I got to figure my life out. I don't even know what's going to happen to me. Went through a trial, 3-day jury trial. Talk about a surreal feeling, man, just sitting in front of, listening to that stuff. I had guys like Nolan Ryan come as a character witness, which some guys are like, oh, that's really cool. It's nice, but like seeing him busy having to come
for that
on my behalf for that, it's embarrassing. And I ended up getting a 5-year prison sentence. I went and served close to 4 years, 3.5 years on it. Really just surrendered everything, took a hard look at my life, peeled back a bunch of layers. Obviously, I had plenty of time to do it, and then started over, man. I got out about 10 years ago, maybe more at this point. and just literally started my life from scratch. Anything I made in the game was gone. Had great family, had good support, but I mean, just took a real humble job and started putting one foot in front of the other and watched God just build and redeem and relationships and all kinds of things, man.
Yeah.
The cool right now is the redemption story, but going through it was, man, where we go from here?
Yeah, man. I mean, there's so much to that. And you actually wrote a book, right? From the bullpen to the penitentiary, right?
From the to the state pen.
State pen, that's what it was.
Yeah.
I knew it was clever like that. Yeah, that's way better.
That's cool.
But yeah, so that must have been some serious. I mean, so a little bit about me. I drank myself to a liver transplant, so I know the depths of making bad choices, right? And I'm with you on waking up in the morning or whatever and being like, what did I do last night? Like that kind of stuff. And sometimes that can escalate to a level of a serious crime, right? When maybe your intentions were different. Who knows? But I can relate to that for sure. And I knew that in my journey that once I was in the throes of addiction and alcoholism, and it was an everyday occurrence for me, the self-reflection period of when I drank myself to the transplant and then that whole year of being on dialysis was almost like a self-contained prison. Nothing to the extent that what you're talking about, but that self-reflection period I think is so important in the idea of like recovery, because if you don't have that rock bottom, like I'm guessing that you would say it's probably yours.
Absolutely.
In mine being the transplant itself, but like that whole year that I spent in that self-reflection period, like, man, there's some serious work you got to do in your head. And I can't imagine having to do that in a prison cell. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Of course. Yeah. Just to back up just a touch. Well, and I know you know this, but just to be super clear, my addiction, my drinking, none of that negates any of the responsibility for what I did.
Oh yeah.
I did wake up and go, oh, what? But it was like, that was my choices. I did that. So
of course,
just to be clear.
Yes. Man, just to clear that. Yes. Absolutely.
Brother, I almost think, well, not almost, I know that that's what it took for me. Cause if I was still in baseball, still in my family, still all these different things, it would have been hard to really get down to it. So while it's difficult and it's obviously a miserable, environment, and it's never quiet, and it's, sleeping on metal bunks, and it's all that's bad. I mean, watching race riots, being involved in all that stuff is terrible. I mean, obviously you don't want to be part of it, but the worst part is you can't just reach out to your family. Like you get a couple phone calls here and there. You can write. I was out of state, so I wasn't getting visits. And so my mom always said this. And again, I don't mean to always go to faith. I know it's not a preachy podcast, but like she always said, like, you don't understand that God's all you need till he's all you have. And all of a sudden I hit the system in August. I'm in Texas. It's metal buildings. There's no AC. It's 150 in the metal building. I'm like, I can't, how do you sleep? What do you do? We're on lockdown. And all I had was my Celebrate Recovery Bible. That was it. I'm like, this is what she, like, literally I got stripped to the point where that's all I had. And so I started there with faith. And then I got into cognitive intervention classes. I read every type of self-help, faith, book you could think of, just trying to like absorb all the knowledge. I'm never going to have time to do that out here. I mean, I try to just get a couple chapters in now and I'm like, oh, I'm busy. I got to go do this. And so it's like, you have to choose and be intentional, because certainly people go in there and it's not meant to rehabilitate you at all. It's like a timeout, and it's like, you have to be intentional. But I was, man, if I'm going to be here, I'm going to try to come out a much better man for my kids and my family and everybody. And I don't know what that looks like, but while I'm here, that's what I'm going to focus on. And so while it was difficult because of the environment, it's also when else are you going to have that kind of time, honestly, to be, truthful about it. It's like, man, your choice. You can lay around and be a sloth all day and do next to nothing, or you can try to get better. So every day I woke up, it's like, God, thank you. Just get me through this day. Help me to get a little better. And then every night I hit the pillow. I'm like, I'm one day closer to home. Thank you for protecting me in survival. And now it's just day after day, just walking out that process.
Mm-hmm. Was when you're the prison you were in was in Texas?
Yeah, I was in Texas. Yes.
Yeah. Was it like a high security prison? Like what kind of? Usually
in like a medium security. So I've heard of some much rougher environments. I wasn't, in terms of prison, I mean, it's all bad, but if you can get to be like a trustee, get freedom to move around, that's great. I never had that, but I also never had to go to like a maximum security where literally people are getting stabbed around you. I mean, I saw some things, it happened, but it was more of like a medium security, thank God.
Yeah. When it comes down to like the last month of your sentence, right? Like what is going through your mind? Like what are you planning? Like are you getting in contact with family? Like how does that work? I'm always interested in like the time right before you get released.
Yeah, that's a great question. So when I made parole, I had about 4 months left. They shipped me to another unit to go through like a class to kind of help kind of re-engage you into society. So yeah, at that point, it's like, okay, I had a great support group, man. I'm so fortunate. And they were kind of, now it was like, okay, what do you need? What's going on? Now it was like, okay, you made parole. What now? And so since I didn't have family in Texas, part of my parole plan was you have to have a place to live. You have to have a job. You have to have all these things. The job, they give you a little time when you get out. But so, yeah, man, there was a family, the Pearsons, dear friends to this day, kind of wrote, I had a group that was saying, hey, here's what Brandon needs. He needs somewhere to go. And they said, you can come stay with us. And, every little, that's not little, that's huge. But every time someone stepped up and showed faith, showed trust, showed, hey, I know where you've been. I know what you did, but you're going to come stay with me and my family and my boys and sons. And it was like, there's still hope. Humanity can still give you some grace. And if you show change, not if you come out with the same attitude and behavior, if you show change, there's a place for you. So that was the first step. It's like, they had a beautiful home. I went from a cell to like my own little master bedroom. And I was just like, God, I don't deserve this. This is amazing. And then I went to the stadium here in Round Rock, the Dell Diamond, the AAA affiliate. And I met with Reed and Reese Ryan, who's Nolan's sons. They run this team. And they were in contact with me. I was gone. They said, what do you need, man? And I said, I need a job. Like, part of my parole plan is I have to have a job. And they're like, this is funny to me, but they're like, we don't have much, but we've got one spot for a maintenance guy. I can't fix anything, dude, but I'll take it. I'll be at the ballpark. And what was really cool was this guy named Corey Woods, who was going to be my supervisor, huge, wicked Red Sox fan. He was from Boston. And he was like, they're like, he's going to love you. You guys can talk baseball. He'll teach you how to do stuff. And that's what it was, man. I took the mundane jobs of painting and staining and pressure washing, and I was thrilled.
Talk about a reality check, huh?
Dude.
I mean, like, from playing, Major League ball to now working in the maintenance. I mean, that's humble pie right there, if I've ever seen it.
Well, it is. And that's part of when I'm able to help people now. I'm like, guys, you gotta be humble, and then you'll get lifted up, because there were literally times where they'd go to like clean the bathrooms and my supervisor would be like, you're not coming. I'm like, yeah, I'm coming. And he's like, no. And he goes, you were a double-A all-star on that field. You're not going to clean the bathroom. I'm like, that's bullcrap. That's part of rebuilding me. And so having a good attitude about all that, and then just, being humble and not being too good for anything. And my dad used to always tell me, he's like, be careful how you treat people on the way up, because they're the same people you see on your way down. And I always tried to treat everyone at the stadiums well, from maintenance to whoever it was that I saw. And now I'm right there working with them, and thank God, because they were treating me well, and I didn't, and it all worked out. And so I made some great relationships during that time. Eventually, what would happen is when the general manager came out, I was staining a fence, I remember, and he was like, hey, Puff, someone just called in, and they're looking for someone to give them a pitching lesson. I know you used to do a lot of that. What do you think? And my first reaction was, do they know what I did? And he's like, dude, there's people can't get past, like, I just had this feeling of unworth, and then just like, man, I'm just shame. Big
and it's scary, I'm sure, to get your confidence back after just becoming the pitcher to the maintenance guy to now to like, how do I become, how do I navigate these waters that are,
that's exactly
tricky, right?
And then my encouragement to people now is just take a step forward, because I said yes. He encouraged me. He's like, Puff, you know this, you know how to do this. And I said, okay. And so they were so gracious. I did my lesson in the cage at the Dell Diamond. It went well. They wanted to do another one, and they kind of started trickling in. And next thing you know, that they promoted me to be a baseball outreach coordinator. So with my background, with everything on my paper, it's not a job I should have. I'm coordinating the camps and doing everything. And it was just, again, God going, hey, just keep walking. Keep walking. And every day. And so I did that, and I built a couple teams. And then me and a buddy took a leap of faith and left that organization, which was just an incredible organization and family to be behind, and started our own thing. And so several years later, we've got like 35 teams, and all started from those little steps of like, just keep moving forward, keep trusting, and those people that showed faith in me gave me that courage to go, oh, wow, okay, I can still do this. Okay. That was kind of a journey. That's
really cool that you approach it that way, because I feel like a lot of people, especially coming from like, the status that you were at, and I say this a lot in recovery, don't be afraid to aim low. And I don't mean that as an insult. I mean that as like an ego check, right? Because if you're trying to be like, well, I'm bigger than just being the maintenance guy, like, you're never going to evolve. You're never going to kind of overcome those issues that you were dealing with that got you in trouble in the first place, right? So when you did that and you started to notice that like things were getting better, how did that feel once you started to get back into like coaching? I'm sure that was like very fulfilling, because going from prison, I'm sure, like, to that it must have been like a complete 180, and now you're in it,
Oh man, amazing. Like, just thinking about it, I want to choke up, because I don't always take the time to think about it. And I look back and I go, wow, like, look where, like, when we get off this, I'm going to go coach kids individually, privately, coach teams, have facility, like all these things that, just be honest with you, Will, when I laid in that cell, sometimes I'm like, I don't deserve anything, God. I know I'll never be a part of baseball again. I messed that up. I know my family's not going to, no one's going to love me, and I don't mean to be self-loathing, but it's like, when you're sitting there,
It's easy.
It's easy to think about that. And so, yes. So the feeling is amazing. It's honestly humbling. And if I ever start getting big where I'm like, look at this, I got it. It doesn't take long for him to be like, oh, you remember like just not that long ago. And it just humbles me, man. And then like you met my wife, like having a relationship with this beautiful woman who's awesome and caring and knows everything about me and doesn't judge and walks by my side and has my back. Stuff like that blows my mind every day, Will. Like, I mean, I literally do. Like, I just want to be in tears going, I'm still this broken guy that's just decided to just kind of walk it out in faith. And it's a great, the redemption part is so cool to share with people.
Yeah. Let's keep talking about that. Yeah. So the redemption part, so you work your way up, you're the coaching, business. And then when did you decide to write the book?
Yeah. So, I wrote the book a couple years ago. I had a journal from prison that I kept pretty meticulously. I knew I had a story. Some people would tell me, hey man, you probably should write a book. And I just didn't know anything about it. And so about 2 years ago, I partnered up with some guys, Streamline, Will Severs and Alex Demchek. I'm just awesome guys. And that's what they do, man. They just walk through the process with you and hold you accountable. And literally just someone's like, a buddy of mine's like, what do you need? I go, I need someone to hold my hand through the whole thing. Like I could teach you how to pitch, but I don't know how to write a book. And so they did, man. They helped me out. It's been awesome. I love that it's out there, for my family or my friends or whoever. And then, every now and then I'll just get that, hey man, I got your book. And it really encouraged me. And I'm just so awesome, man. And then so get a chance to go speak in prisons now. And just, I remember dreaming about that. Like people would come encourage me and I'd go, man, if I ever get a chance to do this, that would be incredible. And now that's all happening. And like life's still a struggle, man. I know I'm going on about how great everything is. And it is, but like, I have my struggles and I get down on myself and I, all these things still happen. I've had a couple situations where people have brought my past up to try to sabotage my business and all these things. And it's like, our neighborhoods, it's still hard, man. And it's still carry that, which is part of it. But yeah, just having the encouragement of other people and then just, again, it's, I guess the only word I can really say about it is I'm grateful and it's humbling.
Yeah, I think just hearing other people's stories, because nobody's perfect. Everyone is suffering in some way or another, right? And some stories are more, exuberant, like yours and mine. But it's staying humble, having that support system, like you just said, that's so important. I just did my first public speaking thing last week, and I've been doing this channel since August, but when you're in front of a group of people and you're talking, man, that I was like super, super nervous. Yeah. So like, what was that like for you? Like ex-ball player coming up there, getting in front of people, like, how did you start that process? And like, was it natural or did you have to work on it?
Man, it started pretty small. It would be something like, hey, I think the first week I was out, a buddy of mine from my church said, I got right back into church. He said, hey, I go out to this recovery thing every Sunday. Would you come share for like 5 minutes your story? Now, my story, I feel like is very natural. I don't want to say easy, but I know that as long as I'm kind of like being obedient and sharing my story, someone's going to get something out of it, whoever that may be. So I found that to be a little bit natural, a little bit easy. Now, when it comes to like a keynote and you have to put together some stuff, like be organized and do all that, I struggle a little bit more. I definitely need to improve on that, but I don't mind once I'm up there. Leading up to it, I'm super nervous. Once I'm up there and kind of going through it, I feel like fairly comfortable, I guess. I've gotten to be more comfortable. Yeah. Again, specifically when it's my story and I'm encouraging people. When you get on other topics, it gets a little tougher for me, but I'm working on that part so I can, maybe do more. But I didn't mind it for some reason. But I get it. Like, especially when you first start doing it.
Yeah, it's scary, right?
But yeah, it's been fun. And after the book, I got a lot more opportunities to say, hey, you want to come speak on your book, sign a couple books, whatever it may be. And I really enjoy doing that. We don't get out. Baseball is my full-time thing, but every time I get asked to do something like this, or I remember sitting 8x10 again, just praying like, if you could ever use my story to encourage one person, I'm in. So when you text me or Sean or, whatever, if it just drops in my lap, I'm like, I'm available. I'll do it.
Let's do it.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Brandon, so you're sober now?
Yes. 17 years.
You are.
Yeah.
17 years?
Yes.
Oh my God. Well, congratulations, man. Like I'm coming up on my 2 on the
Awesome,
28th. So I'm so excited for that day.
Heck yeah.
But so how do you maintain 17 years of sobriety? Can you give us some secrets? Like what works for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, intentionality, man, like a daily routine, right? I think idle time is the devil's
Mm-hmm.
playground. I don't like being, by myself for a long period of time. So if I am, it's like get up, prayer work. The gym is very important to me. I love lifting and working out, and it's not just a physical thing. It really helps me mentally. Reading, listen to podcasts, listen to sermons. Again, just staying so intentional with all those things that I firmly believe at any point in time, and I proved this myself. When I was 5 years sober, Will, I never thought I'd go back. I was like, there's no way, man. I'd hear testimonies like mine. I'd be like, what's wrong with this guy? Why'd you go back? And then it's just so sneaky and conniving, as you know, we say in recovery,
Yes.
that now I know after 17 years, man, if I just have a day, 2, a week where I get feeling like I don't need any of this maintenance stuff, need to read or pray or, what's big is encouraging others, like get outside myself instead of like self-loathing. Like I'm feeling down about myself. I try to lift somebody else up and that helps. But just a series of all those things daily. Thank God, man, to this point, it's 17 years. And so I've had my moments where I get out of routine. I'm like, oh man, my brain gets froggy quick.
Like, what do you find it to be the hardest? Like is it around when you're around other people and you're thinking of like, oh, the old me could maybe hang out here? Like when does it become like the hardest for you to maintain your sobriety?
I think that's it. I think in big social settings where, I'm kind of like an extroverted introvert. Like you see me at the gym or you see me somewhere, I'm always up, I'm energy. Let's get it going. Then I need my time to really like sit back. My wife knows this. Like I'll get home and she's like, you've had to be on all day. And now it's like, and so we love to go watch live bands, her and I. And you know what? My wife will have a drink or two. And she's asked me in the very beginning, she's like, this bothers you? I will never. And, and never once am I like, oh man, I wish I'm missing out on that or anything like that. But I feel like, socially, there are times where I'm in those positions or we have a gathering or something. And I'm like, man, I think if I, was a little looser, it'd be a little easier for me. Cause I'm always overthinking like what I'm saying, how I'm presenting myself, what are people thinking about me? And so, I think those are just normal, like
that's normal
cues. Yeah. That would probably be the hardest, but it's not when I'm sitting around at night watching TV, unwinding. Well, that's what it used to be. I think more than anything, it's probably the social setting. Like everyone's having a good time. I'm kind of trying to force that,
Yeah. Brandon, you mentioned faith a few times. Did faith come before or after the incident?
Yeah. So faith for me personally, my personal journey walking with God started in 1998. It was for me, the experience was kind of that one time, like the Holy Spirit got a hold of me at a church service, Saddleback Church. And it just got me, man. Like I thought I was dodging it from my mom all those years. I'm like, it got me. And there was no denying it. And I started walking it out at that time. And then when I had that real serious life issue, I mentioned the separation from my first wife. That's where you kind of find out how firm your foundation is and how rooted in faith you are. I would say I was a Christian. I would say faith was important, but I wasn't surrendered. It was just kind of like, okay, I got that going and I'm doing my baseball thing and whatever. And then that was when I was like, oh, this is a whole deeper level than I thought. And that's where prison and surrender and really diving deep was like, okay, look, man, I don't know how to necessarily explain it to everybody else, but I know me without God and I know me with God. It's a big difference. Far from perfect, but if people are like, oh, there's hypocrites, like, just imagine that person without faith or a moral compass or the things that I mean, man, I was out there, brother. And I always tell my wife, I'm like, there's like this beast inside. Now it's just kind of keeping them in the box for as long as we can. And faith is a big part of that, huge part.
Yeah. Brandon, this is a question I always like to ask people that come on the show is, what's your favorite part about being sober?
Man, it's showing up for my kids and my grandkids, man, my family. Like I have a grandson now, he's 20 months. And like, I'll never forget when my 2-year-old son, who's 30 now, on his second birthday, walked up to his dad, hungover with a black eye and said, Daddy, what's wrong with your eye? And I'll never forget the shame I felt from my son, Darren, who we're so close now, but I still remember that. And for my grandson to never have to see me hungover, never have to see me like that, for my kids to call on me anytime and know I'm okay and not have to worry about what I'm getting into all the time. I think it's the freedom of that, man, like just living freely and not having to make up stories and watch my back and you know what I mean? Like,
it's peace, right? It's like, and a lot of people, when they get sober, I feel like they almost miss that chaos because they were so used to it and they lived it for such a long time that they're almost like grieving the relationship with the chaos in itself. But after a few months or a year or whatever, 17 years, you can safely say that it's a much better alternative than the chaotic life of a heavy drinker or user or whatever.
Well, like I told you earlier, Will, I watched my dad get sober like 30-something years now when I was in high school. And that was a guy I was like, oh, he's not going to get him. He's a nut, man. And so I watched it. I mean, I saw it for myself. I always tell parents, I'm like, they don't really care what you say. They watch what you do. Because my mom had been telling me, like, she's faithful her whole life. I mean, she's amazing. She's like Mother Teresa, man. But I didn't resonate with that. And then when I saw my dad actually have a life change, I was like, okay, I'm filing that away. There's something going on here. He's different. He's different. So that's important as parents. Like, we can tell him, but what are we doing? Like, how are we acting it out?
Yeah. So Brendan, like, what are your hopes? What are your dreams now? Like, where do you go from here? Like, what do you want to do next?
Man, I think I'm living in it right now, Will. I really do. With this program that I have, coaching and mentoring kids.
What's the name of the program?
Yeah, we're called, we're the GPS Legends out of Austin, Texas, faith-based. We pray after every game. We're not perfect. We're competitive. We do all kinds of things. But at the end of the day, it's a safe place for kids. We help to advocate for college scholarships. We've had a few drafted. We've all these cool things that I get to watch and get messages from other kids going, hey, coach, thanks for being a part of that, or thanks for this or whatever. I mean, if that's where it goes and we just keep expanding slowly and I'm doing this the rest of my life till I retire and get to hang out with my kids and grandkids and watch them do it, I'm golden, man. That's perfect. In terms of like any big dreams outside of that, this is it. Like I could have never dreamed having an organization with 35 teams and some awesome men coaching. I think if we have 35 teams, we got about 50, 60 coaches that are just great men. Some have big league backgrounds. Some are just amazing coaches and mentors, and they just played in high school. But being around that's it for me. That's what gets me going, man.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I want to be mindful of your time. Thank you so much, Brandon, for coming on, and I really appreciate it. So where can people find you before we jump off?
Oh, sure. Yeah. CoachPuffPositive.com is my website. My book's on Amazon, like I said, from the bullpen to the state pen. I think all that. I have a little positive merch thing going on, some positive gear. I think it's all on Coach Puff Positive. That's also my Twitter and all that stuff. So, yeah, anything CoachPuffPositive.com. If anyone wants encouragement or check it out, that's where I'm at.
Absolutely. Beautiful, beautiful. Well, everyone go check out CoachPuffPositive.com, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, and hit him up because his story is pretty amazing. And if you can do 17 years of sobriety, we can all do 17 years of sobriety. So thank you again, Brandon, for coming on. Thank you everyone for watching, and be on the lookout for many, many more episodes coming soon. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, Will.